Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Call and Response, where I asked Haddy and Dennis to come up with answers to impossibly annoying questions, solve the big problems that we have in music troubling us today. On this week's episode, how would you fix Saint Anger? Obviously, it's one of Metallica's well-known Trouble albums, but there's a lot of energy on the album, let's say it that way. Not always a positive energy, but it could definitely be directed towards something more positive. How would you guys fix Saint Anger? Let's go to Haddy first. You look like you got the right facial expression for Saint Anger there.
How do you fix this? I think it's near impossible, man. There's a conflux of multiple issues that need to be addressed if we're talking about Metallica at the time of this being released. So I know the normal criticisms you would hear or suggestions people will say, oh, play a real fucking snare or, put some guitar solos in. These are the standard things, but I don't think it's that. I think what you got to look at is at this point, they're a band way past their prime by a considerable margin. I mean, I think this album, it was like 12 years after the Black Album, probably like their last, universally acclaimed album. Some people even don't even fuck with that, like the real purists. So, you're talking like almost 15 years since like their like true thrash days. But I mean, alongside of that, I mean, we've all seen Some Kind of Monster, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, they were like steeped in like drug abuse, alcohol abuse, hating each other. I felt like they'd become a bit of a joke in the music industry with like the Napster thing. They felt very corporate. So I wouldn't even look at the musical ideas. I would say, maybe a band member should have left at that point. My vote would be for Lars. Personally, it's probably not a hot take.
Not a surprise at all, yeah.
But yeah, they have to go in sober from the off. Lars probably had to go.
Why Lars? Why does he have to leave?
Well, it's either him or Hetfield, right? And I'm not getting rid of Hetfield. He's probably the best thing about Metallica. I'm not the biggest Metallica fan, but
why not the new guy? Because Robert Trujillo, had just
he wasn't even in in the band at the time of this.
Okay, so
I think it was their producer that played bass.
Ah, okay.
I think he's been a fairly strong addition as well, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm not mad at him.
So rehab and firing Lars.
You
steps you take.
My whole thing is you got to look at things outside of the music.
Okay.
For this to improve, because I'm not necessarily mad at them taking the direction they took, but you're starting off from a bad place before you even get into the studio. It's like when you play Overwatch and you've lost in the spawn room. You know what I mean? That's my analogy.
Fair play. They had two dive DPS and static tanks. No, I get that. Dennis, what would you do to fix Saint Anger?
As Haddy said, first thing is fix that snare. The snare is disgusting on the album as well. I would make the songs shorter. I think they've got some decent ideas anyway, but a lot of the album is just repeating sections. They come up with an idea and then they just repeat a section over and over and over again. So if you look at something like My World, if My World is like a 5-minute 45-second song, that is a pretty good punk song, like a hardcore punk song. If you basically trim it in half, take off like 4 bars out of all of the riffs, out of all of the sections, and you got yourself like a 2.5-minute, maybe 3-minute decent hardcore punk song. But they just have this sort of formula all the way through the album where they'll just have a riff and they'll just extend it they'll just double the number of bars that they would have normally played for it, maybe to, I don't know, reach a certain length for the album.
Right, it's almost like they still got the structure trappings of like their like classic thrash albums where they had long songs, but then they're trying to blend it with a punk alternative aesthetic, which leans towards short and sweet.
Just for My World, but in general, the songs seem to be very formulaic and cookie cutter. Let's pick a riff. Someone has a good idea for a riff, and we'll just repeat that over and over and over again, double the amount of time that it would.
And it's an hour 15, that the album.
Yeah,
you could definitely trim that.
That was definitely the Metallica way at the time, though. For a lot of it, was like, we're going to get a riff, we're going to play it until someone plays a solo, and then we're going to go back to a riff. Occasionally, we'll have a chorus in there, maybe a second riff if we're feeling fruity.
It's paint by numbers, I think, or riff by numbers. I think Hattie had said that in our last review, something along those lines.
So I think as a follow up to this, what would say if we're going with the plan, we're shortening the tracks, we're replacing the snare, but more than that, we're replacing the entire drummer, which will probably bring a different sound to it. I'm not going to ask you to remember who was about and drumming at 2003. So I'm going to let you pick whoever. What drummer would you replace Lars with in that particular environment to make an album with them?
Well, it doesn't have to be someone that was about at that time.
It doesn't have to be someone that was about in 2000, because to be honest,
teleport.
I can't remember who was and wasn't active.
Yeah, because that'd be very difficult.
Yeah.
I would choose someone who has decent double bass skills, because it sounds like Metallica are sort of trying to break out of the 80s thrash metal scene and into like sort of more of a modern sort of pop metal. Well, pop metal. They're one of the biggest metal bands in the world, so I guess they're necessarily pop. But I would go with someone who could do some decent double bass. This might be a little difficult. I'm not sure if you guys will get it, but there's a name that I want to pick out. It's the drummer from Divine Heresy, Tim Young. That's it, Tim Young. Okay. I think he had the world record for fastest double bass at some point.
I feel like Metallica's the kind of band that would fucking love to have a world record. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that would get them off.
I'm pretty sure they did that. Like they got a world record for playing like the biggest gig, like with the biggest capacity crowds.
Yeah.
No,
they had that whole era where they were just pushing for stuff like that, where they had the full orchestra perform with them as well, weren't they? They were just going for like, what's the most outrageous thing we can do?
Excess in every way.
Metallica, yeah. Hattie, who would you pick? I've got one in mind, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah. It's hard to think of someone of the era, but I'm just gonna go for a more modern person that I know can play his arse off and has worked well coming into bands outside of his normal element. I'm gonna go for Chris Adler.
That's who I was gonna say as well.
You're gonna say that, yeah.
That's who I was thinking of, yeah.
He's the definitive like drummer for hire in metal. From all of the like different projects he's done. Like you said, Dennis, you're looking for someone that can play the fucking double kick. You're not going to get much better than this dude.
And formerly Lamb of God were active from the mid-90s. So
there was a kind of crossover.
He's era appropriate to jump in. Right. And Lamb of God also not a band that's gone without any issues amongst their members. So I feel like he's gonna know how to deal with that sort of recording environment as well as just being a top tier drummer.
We should point out that Lars did have chops with the double bass, like Whiplash. There is some decent double bass chops, and that's from Hit the Lights. That's from their first album.
Not to go too hard onto Lars, but he's definitely had some good recorded takes. I think that his live game has always been something that's challenged Metallica's spot at the top.
Is that where he gets ragged on? Because, like I said, I haven't really listened to him for so long, and I always hear him get shit, so I don't know where it's coming from. It's just live, is it?
I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of personality stuff with him because he's a really like kind of wacky dude in comparison to a lot of the other. And I don't really mind that sort of stuff, but what gets me is that for a drummer, the single like for a guitarist, you might be have to hear like harmonies or like be able to imagine singable melodies as well as like chunky riffs. For a bassist, you need to be able to like lock in that lower part of the song and make it interesting but not disruptive to the rest of the track. For a drummer, you just need to be in time.
Right, keep time.
You need to be able to keep a tempo, and he's always struggled with that continuously across their whole like 40 years of fucking.
Would you say that he writes stuff that's like pushing his capabilities, like it's so technical for him that causes him to slip, or he's just sloppy in general? Because it seems like you have the most insight than all.
Like I don't have a problem with what he actually drums. Like on record, I think it's fine. I think he fits the band very well. I think he is a super thrashy drummer. But yeah, even like there's some amazing videos where he's doing just like that 80s thrash, like between the kick and the snare, and he's going like and they like you see James just turn around from the front being like, the fuck are you doing, bro? But then to be fair, like, he's never really been the rhythm keeper in that band, has he? Because James Hetfield has the most solid right hand of any fucking guitarist.
The metronomic right hand, right? Yeah. Lars is just gonna follow him.
Okay. I mean, I'm pretty happy with our solution for that. When we get our time machine and we go back to 2003, we can release the Chris Adler Saint Anger, and I think that's perfectly solved it. Yeah, so if you like our solution to the Saint Anger problem, let us know down below in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe for more. We'll be back with a couple of more call and response questions pretty soon. We'll see you guys later. Peace.
Peace.
I am ecstatic, as you can probably tell from my face.
I need a house remix of it.
I wrote only one note for that song, and it was fuck Polo G.
I will come over to your house and beat you up. I feel like Dennis is going to throw some spanners in the works.
People were triggered.
What's wrong with you?
Could I put this in Mind Blown?